Hey, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and welcome to our Kimberbell Digital Dealer Exclusives, or as we call it, Kimberbell Society for July. And look at this cute thing. This is our pincushion flower that's meant to just be a regular pincushion, but I decided, you know what, I want it on my wrist because you never know when you're going to need a straight pin or something, right? So let's have a look at our digital interactive presentation deck that you can find in the description of this video or on the Kimberbell Society link at BERNINAofNaperville.com and see all of the goodies and fixins that you're going to need to make one of your very own. So here we are at the interactive presentation deck that's available in the description of this video or at BERNINAofNaperville.com. This is where you can access the YouTube video that you're watching now, just in case you had misplaced it on YouTube or whatever. You just click there and it'll take you right to the YouTube link. And then if you're unfamiliar with how we do Kimberbell Society, well, let me explain. First of all, this link will take you to the Kimberbell Society kit for July. And right here on our BERNINA of Naperville website, you can find July right from the drop-down menu. And you'll see there July 3rd, Blossom Pincushion Kit and Design. Now, we do the kit and design, and we do the kit separately, just in case you might have been getting the designs from another source that doesn't do the kits. So we also include the materials. So the fabric for this month are 4 fat 8s. So we're giving you twice the fabric that you need. And then you're also getting a soft and stable or form flex little squishy foam piece for the center of the pincushion, that round part right there. Now, we don't include the stabilizer, but if you do not have a stash of Kimberbell stabilizer, we have a link to our website where you can buy a bundle that's curated just for the Kimberbell Digital Dealer Exclusives or Kimberbell Society, whatever you want to call it. And this month, you're going to need fusible backing, medium cutaway, light mesh cutaway, a wash-away topping, and of course, like every time, we need that paper tape. Now, the thread that we're using is pretty easy this time. We only need 1 spool of thread with a bobbin wound of that thread and the thread through the needle. And we're using Isocord 40 weight thread in the number 0520 daffodil color. And this lesson, if you do it the Kimberbell way, there are 2 embroidery files that you need from the Kimberbell Digital Download Designs, and they will both fit in a 5x7 hoop. Other supplies that you need are a fabric marking pen, very sharp scissors, and an expert point and press tool, or these tube turners from Sookie Sews. So Sookie has them in the small size and the large size. We can see here the yellow size. Now the one I'm using in the video is in teal. And that's just because I've had mine for a little bit longer and she rebranded with this cute cherry yellow. But whatever the color is, they are going to work very nicely. You're going to need a little bit of polyfill stuffing or shredded scraps of batting, a hand sewing needle, and if you want to turn your pincushion into a wristlet like I did, you're going to need 1/4 inch wide elastic and about 5 to 7 inches in length, maybe more if you have large wrists. And then we talk about your Kimberbell designs. Well, I want you to know that the files that you need for this month's lesson, all of the files that come for each digital dealer exclusive lesson, require that you get your designs from Kimberbell. So when you place your order through BERNINA of Naperville, please use the same email that you use with Kimberbell, and then it'll be an easy process. Otherwise, we're going to have to call them, change the email so you can get your designs and blah, blah, blah. What am I talking about? Well, you can watch here. Just simply click on this link to learn how to retrieve your files. Now, I mentioned that you get fabric in the kit, and there's 4 fat 8s. There they are. I'm using this little butterfly fabric for the center of the pincushion. Then the yellow and the blue are going to be our petals, and the green is going to be the bulk of the pincushion, or the bit that goes against our wrist. If you're going to do option 1, which is my wristlet, you're also, in addition to what Kimberbell tells you to cut, you're going to need to cut an additional 8" by 2 1/4 strip from a scrap to make the wristlet. Option 2, if you want to just have the pincushion be like a pincushion that sits on the table, I would recommend adding some walnut shells to give the pincushion some weight so it has more substance, you know? So now, I wouldn't be doing these videos if they didn't have a specifically Bernina twist to them. So the hoop that you need, if you're going to do this for the Kimberbell method, is simply a 5x7, which is the large oval gray hoop that you see here on my picture. But I'm using the Bernina cutwork tool. And the Bernina cutwork tool is a tool, you can see it down here, it's super tiny. It replaces your needle, and instead of a needle, you have this little chisel that has 4 positions on it, and as the machine prompts you, you turn the little dial on that tool to the right position. It comes with a 44C foot, which is this guy right here that you see. And when you use any embroidery with the number 44C foot, that means you have to go up a hoop size sometimes, and you need a minimum of a midi hoop if you're going to go up a hoop size. You can use the maxi hoop, the jumbo hoop, or you can also use the one that we used in the video, which is the medium clamp square hoop. Now, I've also prepared a download of our cutwork file that we created. You can see it here in the midi hoop. This is to be used after you already embroider your Kimberbell design. You're just not going to take anything out of the hoop. You're just going to complete this design and then select the cutwork file that Bernina of Naperville has prepared. What am I talking about? Well, let's stop for a second, and I'm going to show you a little something on the computer software. So I'm working here in my Bernina embroidery software version 9, and I'm going to simply open our Kimberbell design. So this is the Kimberbell design of the petals. This is the design that we're going to work on first when we go over to our machine. And you can see when we pull it in, it just fits in the 5x7 large oval hoop from Bernina. But I wanted to add some cutwork files here. And basically, in a nutshell, I did the work for you, but I took our little blue lines, and the blue lines represent the cutting lines. I took these lines and converted them to be cut designs. And that file looks like this. So you can see here it is in the midi hoop. And the reason why we had to do that, if I go to our hoop properties here, we have to pick the 44C foot because that's what we need to use with the 26. So let's look at the medium clamp hoop. And it fits nicely in that. So if we go to our hoop, I just want to show you something. So if we go to the large hoop, the large oval, which is this one with the 26, it looks like it fits, right? Totally within the parameters. But the problem is you get that wide-based foot, and then it chops the stitchable area. See that? How it's going over the line? That's why we have to go up a size on our hoops. And if we're going to go up a size, might as well use this hoop that I like, right? So let's go over and see what's happening once we put these on our machine with our USB stick. So here I am with the clamp medium hoop on the machine. I'm going to go ahead and check my 44C foot on here and get ready to tell it all these good things. Okay, so here is the design from Kimberbell. Now, as we stitch this out, I'm going to go ahead and put my medium clamp hoop on when the machine prompts me and all of that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of the stitching with the 44C foot through all of my Kimberbell designs. So I put on my foot, I thread up my yellow thread that I've also wound some on the bobbin, and we do color number 1, which is basically a placement rectangle that's going to show us where we're going to put our petal fabric. I've taken the time to fuse fusible woven on the wrong sides of all of my fabrics for this pincushion to give it a little extra oomph. So now I'm going to take my petal fabric and put them right sides together, covering this placement stitch that we just made. Now we're going to stitch color number 2, and color number 2 is all of the cutting stitches. So for the Kimberbell method, you would use scissors to cut all of these petals out right on this line once the embroidery design is complete. Color number 3 is actually the stitches that are holding the petals together. So this is the for real stitching. And then once color number 3 is complete, we are simply going to select another design on top of this one. So you're going to go ahead on whatever machine you're using and say, yes, indeed, I've completed my stitching. You're going to leave the hoop on the machine and you're going to leave the work in the hoop. Then you're going to be back in your edit screen and you're going to select add a layer, and we're going to pick our cut work file, which looks like this. And by selecting that, it's also going to place it right on top of your stitching design exactly where you need it. Once you brought the design into the hoop, you're going to select your Kimberbell Stitchy file, go to your I button, and hit the trash can to delete your work. Then we're going to close out of edit and go back to our stitch screen, and we're going to select the thread resequencing. So now all of our little cut works have eliminated the amount of time we have to stop down and cut. So our first cut position is 1, then we're going to cut position 2, then 3, and then 4, and then carefully follow, because after 4 there's another cut number 2 position, cut number 3 position, and a final cut number 4 position. So this will cut all of your work as you turn that little dial each time to the appropriate cut position, that you'll be able to pop these right out of the hoop and then turn them all inside out and press. So popping these out, it does a really good job of cutting. I have to say though, the thicker the designs, the more they like to cut. So sometimes you have to grab your little sharp scissors and trim some weirdness. Now we also cut on top of stitched pieces, so that can also mean that we have to cut a little bit of loose hairs. But all in all, this is a little bit faster than sitting there and painstakingly cutting on a line. And once they've been trimmed and maybe you make your little V cuts into them, you're going to keep all the stabilizer on the actual individual petals and you're going to turn them inside out. And this is where I discovered the sheer beauty of the Sookie Sews tube turner, because without this tool, I would probably still be trying to turn these little petals. But once you turn these, you're going to just I feed the flat end of this tube turner through the opening, and then I let that point press the petal to the other side. So you're just basically transferring the petal. Once you get that in there, you're just rubbing it until it goes over to the other side of that thing like that. And then you just use the little poking device end of this turner to smooth out the edges. And you're just going to do this to all 8 of your petals and press. And it is really quick and an easy way to do this. And that tube turner is also really handy when we are going to turn our entire pincushion. So once you've got your petals arranged, you're going to arrange them alternating the periwinkle and the yellow, periwinkle and the yellow. You're going to locate your flower center and the little foam piece. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take our large hoop that has the light mesh stabilizer in it, and we're going to stitch the second file. So this would be the Pincushion Part B. And this one starts with a placement line for the actual Pincushion base. So remembering to tape and hold everything into place, the next phase is to actually stitch the base down. And it is this like hexagon type shape that is actually the shape of the Pincushion base. And just like any Kimberbell designs, it's actually going to stitch twice on anything that's meant to be like a permanent stitch. Then the next phase is it's going to stitch a little hexagon inside the big hexagon, and this is going to be a placement line for our petals. Now, here's a really important thing. You're going to take the raw edge of the petals and align them right to that stitching line. You're not going to overlap. You're going to put them right to that stitching line. And you're going to carefully tape each petal down after you place it. And so there's going to be a lot of tape. You're going to need, for sure, a whole roll of the Kimberbell placement tape after this is done. Or during this. Might need to replace it after this is done. But once you've taped all your petals into place and get all of that going, you want to make sure that you don't have a car crash with this. And I tried my best to prevent a car crash with this. And, well, you're going to see here in just a moment that sometimes you just crash into things, folks. This is Kimberbell, where we crash into things. Sad but true. So what do we learn by this? Don't leave your machine unattended and have everything at the ready, knowing that the button that starts the machine also quickly stops the machine. Okay, there we go. Everything looks fantastic, right? I changed my 26 foot for our 44C because sometimes a bigger foot like this will help go over things. But look what happened. When it moved into position, it bounced my little petals out of the way. But I fixed it. No worries. All is good. Kind of keep my hand there next to the foot, away from that needle, of course, and then make sure that everyone's happy as we stitch down the rest of this. Boom. No cares in the world. All right, so let's put our regular number 26 foot back on and let's remove this tape. And then we also had a request from Kimberbell in their kit to use the topper. And so this is where we're going to put the topper on. We're going to tape it into place like our other pieces. And we're going to just stitch a placement stitch for our foam. Our foam goes on next over all of these petals. And then once you stitch that down, you're going to want to remove the excess wash away topper from the middle before we put our foam into place. And then you are going to tape your foam into position, covering that placement stitch. And then we're going to stitch the foam. Now, I had another somewhat of a car crash, oopsie daisies there. Remember, don't walk away from this. And I was able to prevent that from happening. And now we're going to simply cut around that foam. Now, I sped this up quite a bit to cut out the foam, but we all know that that stuff can be a little bit of a bear to cut out. So take your time, remove the hoop from the machine if you need to, but do not remove the work out of the hoop. So once we're done with trimming, we put it back on the hoop and we're going to stitch another placement line. And this time it's for our cream colored fabric with the little blue butterflies. Those are going to go on, and I pre-taped them so that it would really be held on there nicely. And then we're going to stitch this into place and then cut around it after that tack down stitch is complete. And once again, it's okay to remove the hoop off of the machine. Just don't pull the work out of the hoop to do this process. And now we just stitch the satin stitch that holds this piece and covers the raw edges of the center. And after all of this beautiful satin stitching is done, it is probably a game or a comedy of errors taping down these petals. Oh my gosh, I felt so silly doing this. So if you have a partner or some kind of loved one that enjoys a good challenge, bring them in the room and have them help you do this, because I started with little pieces of tape. I started with long pieces of tape. By the time I lifted my hand off the petals were flying up in the air. And so I just kept using more tape and then some more tape to slow down the flapping of the petals, just to cover it up with our last part here of our pincushion. You know, it's fun. It's a good adventure. This is actually a very quick project, despite the fact that it seems like we're going to be taping forever. Now tape everything down, get it into position, and now it's time to stitch our piece into place. And don't forget that there's going to be a little opening left so that we can turn it at the end. And as I stitched it, I didn't touch or get near the needle, but I did gently encourage everything to lay flat. And I slowed the speed of the machine down just to make sure we didn't have any accidents, because we have spent a lot of time on all those petals and all of these things, getting things just right. And I did not care to start this project over again, ladies and gentlemen. So once that stitches, you can go ahead and take your work out of the hoop. And you're going to, it's pretty on the back side, isn't it? Okay, so you're going to take those two pieces that didn't get stitched down from that hexagon, and we're going to, is it a hexagon? It's an octagon, isn't it? It's an octagon, sorry. So we're going to take that and fold that piece to match that stitching line right on the other side. And then we're going to fold it again. You can take this over to the iron to make a crease, or once you make the finger crease with it, you can use a marking pen of some kind to draw the line. But this is going to determine how we stitch this open and closed by hand once we stuff our pincushion. And then you're just going to trim about 1/4 of an inch away from that stitch line. And I'm not using a ruler because it's really difficult to use a ruler because you have so many petals and everything squished together. And then another thing you're going to want to do before you turn it inside out is you're also going to want to trim the little points down so that they're not adding bulk to the edges. But that's not really as important. I actually would have really preferred if this were a circle. It would have been a much easier project to make. And once you turn it inside out, you're going to remove all that tape, get everything nice and pretty, and you're going to stuff it, and you're going to hand sew that opening closed. And I couldn't even think of a way to do this by machine. So if you can, that's fantastic. But stuff your piece. Be generous with how much you stuff your flower. Now, this is also the point. If you were going to just have this be a tabletop pincushion, you would want to stuff a little bit of your stuffing in and then make like a little satchel or something of walnut shells, or I suppose you could just put the walnut shells in the bottom of the bag first and then stuff, it's not a bag, but the structure there that's the pincushion, however you would want to do it. But I'm doing this as a wristlet, so I'm just stuffing as much wadding as I feel comfortable putting in there, so I can still like close it and keep it secure while I do my hand sewing. And I pinned it a little bit to kind of hold things into place, but I actually think the easiest way is just to use all of your fingers, hold it together, and then stitch. So once you have a thing that's stitched, you're actually going to take that strip that we prepared earlier, that 2 1/4 by 8-inch piece. Now measure your wrists. I did mine tight because I didn't want this big ball slipping around on my wrist, but make sure that you can get your hand through whatever thing it is you make. But I cut 2 1/4 by 8-inch piece, folded it long side, right sides together, and stitched 1/4 of an inch, and then used my tube turner to turn it inside out. Then with a bodkin, and you could also use a safety pin, I fed the elastic through the tube, and then I stitched the tube ends at like a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I placed that down on the back side of my pincushion and secured that into place with my hand sewing needle and thread. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you certainly put your little flower to good use, whether it's on your wrist, on your sewing table, or maybe stuck in a cute little mug. And if you like this video and you'd like to see more tutorials, don't forget to check out our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Happy sewing, happy embroidery, and happy everything.